He saved her from the canyon, but her Apache blood would change his destiny forever. Ethan Harper had always known the land like the back of his hand. The vast canyons, the rolling hills, and the endless stretches of desert were both his home and his sanctuary. He had spent his life working on the ranch his family had built decades ago, learning to read the winds, the soil, and the wildlife as if they were old friends. On this particular morning, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the horizon in soft golds and pinks. Ethan had saddled his horse, Dusty, and was riding along a narrow trail that ran alongside one of the canyon's deepest gorges. He liked starting his days early when the world was quiet, and the only sounds were the whispers of the wind and the occasional call of a hawk. As he guided Dusty along the edge, Ethan's eyes scanned the cliffs carefully. He had learned long ago that the canyon could be unforgiving. One false step, one loose rock, and a person could fall hundreds of feet to their death. That thought had always made him cautious, careful with every movement he made. Today, however, something unusual caught his attention. Far below, in the shadowed bottom of the canyon, a sudden movement sparked his curiosity. Ethan squinted against the sunlight, trying to make out the figure. It was a young woman, struggling to climb the rocky slope, her movements frantic and desperate. Dusty whinnied nervously, sensing Ethan's tension. Without thinking twice, Ethan spurred the horse forward, moving closer to the edge to get a better view. He could see now that the woman had slipped on a loose stone and was hanging by the edge of a small ledge. Her fingers clawed at the rocks as she tried to pull herself up, but it was clear she would not be able to hold on much longer. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, his voice carrying down the canyon. He dismounted as quickly as he could, letting Dusty stay safely on the trail above. Every step down the steep slope was careful and deliberate. Rocks crumbled under his boots, sliding down toward the bottom where the woman was trapped. He could see her face now, wide-eyed, full of fear but determined. Her dark hair was tangled, her clothes ripped from the fall, and yet there was a strength in her eyes that told him she would fight for her life. "Grab my hand," Ethan called again, taking a deep breath to steady himself. He dropped to his knees on a small, stable ledge and reached down toward her. She hesitated for a moment, then, as if recognizing his sincerity and strength, she stretched her hand toward him. Their fingers met, and Ethan gritted his teeth, pulling with all his might. Rocks shifted beneath them, making the ground treacherous, but slowly, inch by inch, he managed to bring her closer. When she finally scrambled onto the ledge beside him, she collapsed, gasping for air. Ethan pulled her into a firm embrace for a brief moment, ensuring she was stable. She shook her head, trying to recover from the shock, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Ethan's heart pounded, not just from the effort but from the realization of how close she had come to death. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice calm but insistent. I don't think so," she managed, her voice trembling. She looked at him, her dark eyes filled with gratitude and something else he couldn't quite place, curiosity perhaps, or cautious admiration. "Stay here. Don't move until I check the path," Ethan said, scanning the rocks above. He noticed loose stones and uneven ground that could make any further movement dangerous. Carefully, he guided her upward, step by step, supporting her weight whenever the terrain grew steep. Every movement required patience, every gesture careful, as though the canyon itself were testing them both. As they finally reached a safer ledge, Ethan helped her stand fully upright. She brushed herself off, trying to regain some dignity after the fall. "Thank you," she said quietly. I thought I wouldn't make it." "You're safe now," Ethan replied, his eyes scanning her for any hidden injuries. "But you need to be careful. This canyon isn't forgiving." She nodded, still catching her breath. "I know. I thought I could make it across, but the rocks gave way." Her voice carried a hint of pride, a stubbornness that seemed to resist the fear she had just faced. Ethan noticed it immediately. There was a strength in her that was uncommon, a resilience that matched his own love for the land. They began to walk along the safer trail that led back to the main path. Ethan noticed the way she moved, careful, measured, almost like she was accustomed to survival in the wild. He couldn't help but wonder about her story, about how someone so skilled could end up in such a dangerous situation. "My name is Ethan," he said, extending a hand in greeting as they walked. "Aeon," she replied, shaking it briefly, her grip firm despite the trembling in her limbs. There was a warmth in her presence, a quiet confidence that made Ethan feel that she was not just another traveler or wanderer. She had a fire in her, a spirit that was alive and untamed. As they walked, Ethan asked gently, "Were you traveling alone?" "Yes," Aeon replied. I needed to get across the canyon. There were things I had to see, places I had to be. I didn't expect to fall." Her voice was steady now, but Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the lingering fear that came from narrowly escaping death. Ethan nodded, understanding more than he could say. He had spent his life in this wilderness, and he knew that sometimes even the most skilled travelers could find themselves in danger. He decided to offer her a place to rest, at least until she recovered from the ordeal. "You should come with me," he said. "There's a cabin not far from here. You can rest, get some food, and be safe until you're ready to continue." Aeon hesitated. Her eyes flickered with caution. She had been taught to trust few people, especially strangers. But something about Ethan's calm presence, his steady voice, and the fact that he had saved her life made her reconsider. After a moment, she nodded. "I thank you. I will go with you." Ethan led the way back to his homestead, the sun climbing higher in the sky as the canyon warmed beneath its light. Dusty neighed softly, and Ethan gave the horse a gentle pat before turning his attention back to Aeon. "We'll get you something to eat. You need energy after that fall." Inside the cabin, Ethan moved with practiced ease, starting a small fire and preparing a simple meal of bread, meat, and fresh water. Aeon watched quietly, her curiosity evident. She had spent much of her life in the wilderness, but she had rarely encountered someone like Ethan, someone whose knowledge of the land was matched by his kindness. "Thank you," she said again, her voice quieter this time. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't been here." "You'd have been fine," Ethan said with a small smile. "But it's good to see you safe. That's what matters." They ate in companionable silence at first, the crackling fire filling the space between words. Then slowly, Aeon began to ask questions about the land, about Ethan's life, about how he knew the canyon so well. He answered patiently, sharing stories of his childhood, the ranch, the lessons he had learned from his family, and the dangers of the wild. Aeon listened intently, her eyes wide with interest. She shared some of her own experiences as well, carefully, testing the waters of trust. Her stories revealed a life shaped by the wilderness, by her people's traditions, and by a resilience that had carried her through many challenges. As the day wore on, the bond between them began to grow. What had started as a simple act of rescue was slowly transforming into something deeper, an understanding, a mutual respect, and a recognition of courage in each other. Ethan admired Aeon's strength and spirit, while she found herself drawn to his calm wisdom and unwavering bravery. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky with streaks of orange and red, they sat together outside the cabin, watching the shadows stretch across the canyon. Neither spoke much, but both felt the unspoken connection that had begun with a moment of danger and had continued through shared stories and quiet understanding. The canyon, vast and endless, held many secrets and many dangers. But on this evening, it had also brought two lives together. Ethan knew that rescuing Aeon had changed something inside him, something he could not yet name, but something that felt important, like the beginning of a story far larger than the canyon itself. Aeon, too, felt it. She had entered the canyon alone, facing the unknown, and now she was here, safe and alive, yet aware that this encounter would leave a mark on her life as well. She had trusted Ethan, and in doing so, had opened a door to a future that neither of them could predict. As the stars began to appear, shimmering above the canyon like tiny sparks of hope, Ethan and Aeon sat together quietly, both aware that this day would be remembered forever. Not for the fall, not for the danger, but for the moment two lives intersected in the wild and the beginning of a journey neither of them had expected. Aeon stayed at Ethan's cabin for a few days, enough time for her body to recover from the fall and for her spirit to regain its strength. The cabin was small but warm, with wooden walls that smelled faintly of pine and earth. A fire burned gently in the hearth, filling the room with soft warmth, while Dusty, Ethan's horse, rested outside in the small pen. Each day, the two shared meals and conversation, slowly building a connection that neither fully understood yet, but both felt in their hearts. Ethan had learned long ago that patience was as important as courage. He never pressed Aeon to speak about herself, though he was curious about her past and her people. He respected her silence, understanding that trust could not be rushed. She in turn began to notice the quiet strength in him, the way he treated everything around him with care, whether it was the land, the animals, or herself. On the second morning, Aeon rose early, moving toward the small stream near the cabin to wash her face. The sun was just beginning to rise, turning the canyon walls into golden towers that reflected light across the water. Ethan watched from the doorway, giving her space. There was something about her presence that felt both strong and delicate at the same time, like the wind that swept through the canyon, gentle, yet unstoppable. "You should eat before the day gets too hot," Ethan said softly, walking toward her with a basket of bread and dried fruit. "I'm not very hungry," Aeon replied, but she accepted the food. "I'm fine. I just like the quiet in the mornings." Ethan nodded. "I understand. The canyon is peaceful before the world wakes. I've spent many mornings here like this. It feels like the land is breathing with you." Aeon smiled faintly. There was a wisdom in her eyes, a quiet respect for the natural world. "Where I come from, the land speaks too," she said. "You just have to listen." The two ate slowly, the sounds of the canyon around them, the rushing stream, the distant call of a bird, the rustle of leaves in the wind, filling the spaces between words. There was comfort in the simplicity of their routine. Aeon found herself relaxing, her fear from the fall slowly dissolving. Ethan found himself noticing her subtle movements, the way she carried herself with confidence despite everything she had been through. After breakfast, Ethan suggested they take a walk along one of the safer trails nearby. Aeon agreed, curious to see more of the land that had saved her. As they moved through the canyon, Ethan pointed out hidden streams, the tracks of animals and plants that were safe to eat. Aeon listened carefully, absorbing his knowledge. She was amazed at his familiarity with every rock, every bend in the canyon, every hidden path. It was clear that he had spent his entire life learning from this land, and she respected that deeply. "You know a lot about this place," Aeon said after a while, watching him point to a small patch of wild herbs. "I've had to," Ethan replied with a shrug. "The canyon can be beautiful, but it can also be dangerous. You have to know it if you want to survive." Aeon nodded thoughtfully. "I know what you mean. Where I come from, we live close to the land too. It teaches you everything you need to know, how to find water, how to stay safe, how to survive." They walked for hours, sharing stories about their lives. Aeon told Ethan about her family and her people, careful not to reveal too much too quickly, but enough for him to understand that her heritage was rich with tradition and courage. Ethan spoke of his childhood on the ranch, of the hard work and simple joys of life in the canyon. They discovered a common respect for nature, for perseverance, and for the quiet strength that life demanded. By the afternoon, they returned to the cabin. Aeon helped Ethan with chores, tending to Dusty and gathering firewood. She moved with a confidence born of experience, showing skills that surprised Ethan. He realized that although she was young, she carried a knowledge of the land that was remarkable. At the same time, she saw the care Ethan put into everything he did, the way he respected even the smallest creatures and plants. Each recognized something admirable in the other, a balance of strength and gentleness that made them curious to know more. As the days passed, Aeon's health and spirits improved. She began to move more freely, exploring the areas around the cabin, climbing small rocks, and even trying her hand at simple tasks like setting traps for small game. Ethan watched, impressed by her quick learning and determination. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. There was a wildness to her, a fire that refused to be tamed, but also a calm wisdom that grounded her. One evening, as the sun set behind the canyon walls, they sat together outside the cabin. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, the colors reflecting on the rocks in a way that made the canyon glow. Ethan handed Aeon a cup of warm tea, and they sipped in silence, letting the moment settle around them. "You've taught me a lot about the land," Aeon said finally, breaking the quiet. "I've been in many places, but I've never met someone who knows the wilderness like you do." Ethan smiled. "It's all about paying attention. The land tells you what it needs, what it gives, and what it warns you about. You just have to be willing to listen." Aeon nodded, her gaze distant. "Where I come from, we listen too. The land is our teacher, our home, and sometimes our protector." For the first time, Ethan noticed the depth in her eyes, not just her beauty, but the strength and wisdom of her people. He realized that Aeon's survival wasn't just about skill or luck. It was about the courage and knowledge that had been passed down through generations. He felt a quiet admiration, a recognition that her heritage had shaped her into someone remarkable. As night fell, the canyon grew dark, and the stars began to shine above them. They sat by the fire, sharing stories of courage and hardship, of moments that had tested them and taught them who they were. Ethan told her about the challenges of raising a ranch, the long hours, and the responsibility of caring for both the land and animals. Aeon spoke of her people's traditions, the respect for nature, and the importance of family and community. Each story revealed more about their character, their values, and their hearts. Over the next week, their routine became comfortable. Aeon helped with daily chores, explored the canyon, and shared her knowledge of survival. Ethan taught her about the plants and animals, how to navigate the land safely, and how to prepare for sudden dangers. They discovered a shared sense of respect and trust, built slowly through conversation, actions, and moments of quiet understanding. But beneath the calm, a subtle tension began to emerge. Aeon's presence, while welcome and inspiring, was also a reminder of the larger world beyond the canyon. There were tensions between settlers and native communities in the region, and her heritage might bring challenges neither of them could predict. Ethan noticed the glances of neighbors who passed by, whispers that carried suspicion or curiosity. He understood that helping Aeon might not be welcomed by everyone. Aeon, too, felt the weight of her heritage. She was grateful for Ethan's kindness, yet aware that staying at the cabin might be complicated. Her people's customs, their pride, and the stories of her ancestors reminded her that she could not fully blend into the settlers' world. Still, she appreciated the safety, the warmth, and the trust that Ethan offered. One afternoon, as they walked along a ridge, Aeon stopped to look at the distant canyon. "I will have to return to my people soon," she said softly. "They will worry about me, and I must honor my responsibilities." Ethan looked at her, feeling a mix of admiration and concern. "I understand," he said, "but you'll always be welcome here. You don't have to face the world alone." She smiled faintly, a mixture of gratitude and sadness in her eyes. "Thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know." As the days continued, they prepared for her eventual departure, knowing it was coming but unwilling to rush the time they had together. They continued to share knowledge, stories, and quiet moments of connection. Each day, their bond grew stronger, not just through shared experiences, but through respect for each other's strengths, values, and courage. By the end of her stay, Aeon was ready to continue her journey, but the connection between them had become undeniable. The days of recovery had transformed into a time of mutual discovery, friendship, and the beginnings of something deeper. Ethan had learned about her world, her resilience, and her wisdom. Aeon had discovered trust, safety, and respect in a world that often demanded caution. As they stood together one last morning, preparing for her departure, Ethan felt a quiet hope. He did not know what the future held, but he knew that their meeting had changed both their lives. The canyon, with all its dangers and beauty, had brought them together, and in doing so, had opened a door to possibilities neither had imagined. Aeon looked back at the cabin, at Ethan, and then at the canyon that had nearly taken her life. She knew that the world beyond the canyon was vast and uncertain, yet she felt stronger for having been here. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this meeting with Ethan Harper was not the end, but the beginning of a story that would shape both their destinies. Days passed after Aeon's stay at Ethan's cabin, but the bond they had formed remained strong. Ethan often thought about her, wondering how she fared and what challenges she faced in the wider world. Aeon, too, carried memories of Ethan's kindness and the time she had spent in the canyon. While she had returned to her people as she promised, the thought of him lingered like a steady flame in her heart. Aeon's return to her community was met with relief and quiet celebration. Her family and elders welcomed her safely back, listening to her account of the fall and the rescue. They were impressed by the courage of the young rancher who had saved her life and cautious about what this encounter might mean for her future. In their world, outsiders were treated with respect, but also with care, for the wrong person could bring danger or misunderstanding. Aeon shared what she could, speaking carefully about Ethan. She described his bravery, his respect for the land, and his genuine kindness. Her people listened, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and concern. While they appreciated his actions, they were wary. The history between their communities had been complicated, filled with misunderstandings and mistrust. Aeon understood their caution. Even though she admired Ethan, she knew that trusting him fully could be difficult for others to accept. Meanwhile, Ethan returned to his daily routine, but something had changed in his perspective. His time with Aeon had opened his eyes to the world beyond his ranch. He thought more about the people who lived in the lands surrounding the canyon and the struggles they faced. His respect for Aeon's heritage had grown, and with it, a sense of responsibility. If danger ever threatened her or her people, he felt a strong desire to help, even if it meant risking his own reputation. One afternoon, a rider approached the ranch with urgent news. Settlers nearby were reporting tensions with local communities, and rumors of potential conflicts began to spread. Ethan listened carefully, understanding the danger but also recognizing that Aeon's people might be affected. He knew that bridging the gap between communities was never easy, but he also felt that doing nothing could lead to unnecessary suffering. Ethan decided he needed to act with caution. He gathered supplies and prepared to travel toward the areas where Aeon's people lived, hoping to offer assistance if needed. His heart carried concern for Aeon, as well as a sense of duty. The canyon had taught him that foresight and preparation were essential. Every journey could hold hidden risks, and he was determined to face them with the same care he had shown during her rescue. When Ethan arrived near her community, he found Aeon already busy with the preparations for potential challenges. Her presence was a force of calm determination, guiding her people and ensuring that everyone remained safe. Despite her youth, she commanded respect through her knowledge, courage, and unwavering dedication. She had become a bridge between generations, blending the wisdom of her elders with the practical skills she had gained from life in the wild. Ethan approached quietly, aware that his presence might be surprising. Aeon noticed him immediately and offered a cautious smile. "You came," she said, her voice steady but tinged with curiosity. "I had to," Ethan replied. "I want to make sure you and your people are safe. I couldn't ignore the news." Her eyes softened slightly, showing trust and appreciation, but she also understood the challenges ahead. "It is dangerous out there. The tensions are growing. We must be careful. Not everyone will welcome your help." Ethan nodded. "I understand. I'm ready to help however I can." Over the next several days, they worked together, carefully monitoring the movements of settlers and neighboring communities. Ethan learned more about Aeon's people, their traditions, their strategies for survival, and their deep connection to the land. He began to see that her knowledge was not just practical. It was a reflection of centuries of wisdom passed down through generations. Every decision she made was guided by respect for the land and for the people she cared for. At the same time, they faced external pressures. Some settlers were suspicious of Aeon, while others saw Ethan's involvement as unusual or even threatening. Rumors began to circulate, and tensions grew. Ethan realized that his loyalty to Aeon and her community could bring scrutiny, criticism, and even danger. Yet he remained steadfast, believing that helping them was the right thing to do. Aeon noticed the strain on him and appreciated his courage. She also felt the weight of her own responsibilities, knowing that any mistake could have serious consequences for her people. Their partnership became a careful balance of trust, strategy, and mutual respect. They relied on each other's strengths, Ethan's knowledge of the land and courage, Aeon's wisdom, skills, and understanding of her people. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant hills, they sat together overlooking a small river. The water reflected the colors of the sky, creating a sense of calm amidst the uncertainty. Ethan broke the silence. "I never expected to find myself here, helping your people. But now that I am, I can't turn away. They deserve safety, and so do you." Aeon looked at him, a mixture of admiration and concern in her eyes. "You are brave, Ethan, but you must understand, the world out there is not always kind. Some will not see your intentions, and your help may not be welcome." "I know," he replied, "but I cannot ignore what is right. You saved me from fear when I felt uncertain about the dangers of this land. Now it is my turn to stand by you." Their conversation deepened the bond between them. It was no longer just about survival or mutual respect. It was about trust, understanding, and shared values. They began to anticipate challenges together, discussing strategies, preparing supplies, and mapping routes that could keep everyone safe. During one patrol, they discovered a group of settlers who were unaware of the potential danger their actions could cause. Ethan and Aeon approached carefully, speaking to them with patience and clarity. They explained the importance of respecting boundaries, understanding the land, and being cautious in their interactions with the community. Some listened, appreciating their wisdom. Others were skeptical. Yet Ethan and Aeon continued to act with calm determination, knowing that patience and consistency could build bridges even in the most tense situations. Over time, small victories reinforced their efforts. Minor conflicts were avoided, misunderstandings resolved, and respect slowly grew between the communities. Aeon's leadership and Ethan's support became a source of hope for those around them. Even the wary settlers began to recognize that collaboration and understanding could bring better results than fear or aggression. Through it all, Ethan and Aeon shared moments of quiet reflection. They would sit by the river at night, talking about their lives, their dreams, and the paths that had led them here. Aeon spoke of her ancestors, the stories passed down through generations, and the values that guided her every decision. Ethan shared his experiences on the ranch, his love for the land, and the sense of purpose that had always driven him. Despite the challenges, there was joy in these moments. They laughed together, encouraged each other, and learned from one another. Ethan admired Aeon's strength, patience, and courage. Aeon respected Ethan's wisdom, loyalty, and unwavering sense of justice. They found in each other not just friendship, but partnership, a shared understanding that could withstand the pressures of the outside world. But even as they worked to protect the community, Ethan could sense that their journey was far from over. The land held dangers that could not always be predicted, sudden storms, wild animals, or accidents that could occur without warning. And beyond the natural threats, there was the uncertainty of human behavior, the possibility that distrust or fear could undo everything they had built. Aeon sensed it too. She knew that her people's history with outsiders was complex, and that every interaction carried weight. Yet she also recognized the rare bond she shared with Ethan, a connection built not just on circumstance, but on shared courage, respect, and understanding. One day, as they prepared for another patrol along the canyon, Aeon turned to Ethan. "We have done much already, but there is still more to do. The world outside is not easy, and our efforts will be tested. Are you ready for that?" Ethan looked at her, the sunlight casting a warm glow on her face. "I am ready, because whatever comes, we face it together." And so, side by side, they continued their work, aware of the challenges ahead but strengthened by the trust they had built. Each day tested their resolve, each decision required careful thought, and each moment offered the opportunity to grow. Through every trial, they learned not just about survival, but about courage, loyalty, and the quiet power of understanding and respect. By the end of the week, they had strengthened the community's safety, earned cautious respect from the settlers, and deepened the bond between themselves. Ethan realized that helping Aeon and her people had changed him. He was no longer just a rancher who knew the land, but a man who had learned the value of courage, trust, and connection. Aeon, too, recognized that Ethan's presence was more than protection. It was partnership, an alliance built on respect and shared purpose. As the sun set behind the hills once more, they stood together, looking out over the canyon. The river sparkled in the fading light, the wind whispered through the trees, and the land seemed to breathe around them. They knew that challenges remained, but they also knew that together they could face them. Their journey was far from over, but for the first time, they felt truly prepared to meet whatever the future held. And in that quiet moment, with the world stretching endlessly before them, Ethan and Aeon understood that the canyon had given them more than survival. It had given them trust, respect, and the beginning of a story that would shape both their destinies. The days following the increasing tensions between the settlers and Aeon's community were filled with both quiet moments and intense challenges. Ethan and Aeon had become a team, relying on each other's strengths and knowledge to navigate the dangers that came with living in the canyon and its surrounding lands. Their connection had grown deeper, not just through survival, but through understanding each other in ways neither had expected. Aeon's visits to the canyon were no longer about simple survival. She began sharing her knowledge of the land more freely with Ethan, teaching him skills he had never thought necessary. She showed him how to track animals more quietly, how to recognize subtle signs in the environment, and how to read the clouds for weather changes. Each lesson was carefully observed, and Ethan absorbed them eagerly, recognizing that her heritage and upbringing had given her wisdom that could not be learned from any book. "You have a natural way with the land," Aeon said one morning as they crouched near a small creek, studying the tracks of a deer. "You understand its moods and rhythms, but you also try to control it. Sometimes you just need to listen and follow its lead." Ethan smiled. "I've spent my life working with the land, but you've taught me to see it differently. I think I've been looking at it too practically, forgetting that it has a life of its own." Aeon's eyes softened. The land teaches those who are willing to learn, and not just about survival. It teaches patience, respect, and courage. Their days were filled with shared work and quiet conversation, but there were also moments that revealed their deeper feelings. Ethan found himself thinking about Aeon even when she was not around, wondering if she was safe, if she was well, if she remembered him. Aeon, too, felt a growing warmth whenever she thought of Ethan, recalling his calm presence, his courage, and the kindness that had saved her life in the canyon. One afternoon, while setting up a small camp on a ridge, Aeon turned to Ethan with a serious expression. "There is something I must tell you," she said. "My people, they will need me soon. There is a gathering, an important meeting to discuss our safety and the future of our lands. I must return for a time. I hope you understand." Ethan's heart sank slightly, but he nodded. "I understand. I just hope you will be safe. You have already faced so much, and I cannot bear the thought of anything happening to you." Aeon reached out and placed her hand on his arm. "I will be careful. And you must remember what we've learned from each other, about the land, about courage. It will stay with you, even when I'm gone." The days turned into weeks, and the separation became a test of both their courage and patience. Aeon's absence left a quiet space in the canyon, and Ethan felt it deeply. Yet he respected her responsibilities and trusted her wisdom. During this time, he applied the lessons she had taught him, navigating the canyon and the surrounding areas with newfound insight. Her influence shaped his decisions, made him more thoughtful, and strengthened his resolve. Aeon, on her side, carried the memory of Ethan's guidance and courage to her people. She shared his knowledge subtly, blending it with her own heritage and the wisdom of her elders. The strategies they had discussed together proved useful in helping her community navigate challenges, avoid conflicts, and prepare for the future. Every step she took was measured and careful, guided by both her instincts and the lessons learned from Ethan. Despite the distance, they found ways to communicate through messages left in agreed-upon locations, small tokens of reassurance and guidance. Ethan would leave notes with observations about the land, advice on navigating dangerous areas, or even just a few words of encouragement. Aeon would respond similarly, offering warnings, insights, and reminders of the lessons they had shared. These exchanges strengthened their bond, reminding them both that their connection was more than just circumstance. It was a meeting of hearts and minds. One day, as Ethan patrolled a narrow canyon path, he encountered a sudden challenge. A small group of wild animals, startled by a landslide, blocked the trail. Remembering Aeon's instructions, he moved cautiously, observing their behavior and using gentle sounds to guide them away without causing harm. The situation resolved peacefully, and Ethan realized how much her teachings had changed him. He no longer reacted purely with instinct. He acted with understanding, respect, and patience. When Aeon returned after her gathering, Ethan felt a surge of relief and joy. She approached the cabin with a calm, confident stride, her face radiant despite the challenges she had faced. They greeted each other warmly, the reunion a mix of comfort, excitement, and unspoken emotion. "You've changed," Aeon said softly, studying him. "I can see it in the way you move, the way you observe the land. You've learned more than you realize." Ethan smiled, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "And you've reminded me of things I had forgotten. Courage, patience, respect. You've changed me too." Their time together resumed, filled with both work and reflection. They explored deeper parts of the canyon, tested each other's skills, and learned to anticipate challenges before they arrived. The bond between them was no longer just about survival. It was about partnership, respect, and trust. They laughed together, shared stories, and occasionally sat in silence, simply observing the beauty and power of the land around them. But the outside world was never far away. Reports of potential conflicts, challenges from settlers, and the ongoing tension between communities reminded them that their work was not finished. They had to remain vigilant, balancing their personal connection with the responsibilities they shared. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the canyon walls, they sat together on a high ledge overlooking the valley below. The colors of the sunset reflected in the river, painting the landscape in warm golds and deep purples. Aeon spoke quietly, her voice thoughtful. "I never imagined I would find someone like you, Ethan. Someone who listens, respects, and stands with me even when the world is uncertain." Ethan looked at her, his expression earnest. "And I never imagined I would meet someone like you, Aeon. You've taught me more than I ever thought possible, not just about survival, but about courage, patience, and trust. You've changed me in ways I can't fully explain." They sat in silence for a while, letting the moment settle between them. The canyon stretched endlessly before them, vast and mysterious, yet it no longer felt intimidating. With each other's presence, it felt like home, a place of safety, growth, and understanding. In the following days, they began preparing for the next phase of their journey. They knew that challenges would continue to arise, but they were ready to face them together. They strengthened their supplies, mapped safe routes, and ensured that their communities had the knowledge and guidance needed to navigate any potential threats. Aeon shared more about her heritage, teaching Ethan about ceremonies, customs, and the wisdom of her people. He listened attentively, absorbing each lesson with respect and curiosity. Their conversations deepened their understanding of each other, building not just trust, but a sense of shared purpose. Ethan, in turn, shared more about his life as a rancher, the lessons of hard work, responsibility, and the quiet strength required to live in harmony with the land. Aeon admired his dedication and resilience, recognizing that courage came in many forms, not just in moments of danger, but in the everyday choices that shaped a life. Together, they discovered a balance between two worlds, the knowledge and wisdom of Aeon's heritage, and the practical experience and courage of Ethan's life in the canyon. They learned from each other, complemented each other's strengths, and supported each other through challenges both small and large. One afternoon, as they practiced tracking animals and observing the land, Aeon noticed a subtle change in Ethan's demeanor. He moved with a quiet confidence that had been strengthened by her guidance, yet there was also a softness in his eyes, a recognition of their shared bond, a growing affection that neither had spoken aloud. "You've grown," Aeon said gently, a smile touching her lips. "Not just in skill, but in heart. You've learned to see the land and people differently." Ethan looked at her, a warmth spreading through his chest. "And you've taught me to see myself differently. I'm stronger because of you, wiser because of you, and braver because I've learned from you. You've changed my destiny, Aeon, even if you don't realize it." Their words hung in the air, unspoken yet understood. The canyon, with all its beauty and danger, had brought them together. It had tested them, challenged them, and ultimately shaped them into partners capable of facing whatever the world might hold. As the sun set and the sky turned to shades of deep blue, they returned to the cabin. The fire burned softly in the hearth, casting warm light across the walls. They sat together, side by side, sharing stories, laughter, and moments of quiet reflection. The bond they had forged through danger, trust, and mutual respect had grown into something undeniable, a connection that went beyond friendship, beyond partnership, into the realm of shared destiny. For Ethan and Aeon, the canyon had been both a teacher and a witness. It had shown them courage in the face of danger, patience in moments of uncertainty, and the power of trust and understanding. And as they looked toward the future, they knew that together, they could face any challenge, overcome any obstacle, and embrace the possibilities that awaited them beyond the canyon's edge. The morning air was crisp and clear as Ethan and Aeon prepared for what they both knew could be a difficult day. The canyon stretched endlessly before them, its jagged cliffs and winding paths a reminder of the dangers and beauty that had brought them together. Yet today was different. Word had reached them that a sudden threat was approaching, a natural disaster, a combination of heavy rains and rising river levels that could endanger both the settler communities and Aeon's people. It was the ultimate test of everything they had learned and everything they had shared. Ethan adjusted the straps of his pack, ensuring it was secure. He looked at Aeon, who was carefully checking supplies and reviewing the paths they would take to guide both groups to safety. Her eyes, dark and sharp, reflected focus and determination. In that moment, Ethan realized how much she had grown and how much he had grown alongside her. The time they had spent together had not just strengthened their skills, it had strengthened their hearts and their resolve. "We need to move quickly," Aeon said, her voice calm but urgent. "The river is already swelling. If we don't guide everyone to higher ground, lives could be at risk." Ethan nodded. "We can do this, together." The journey was arduous. The rain had begun to fall lightly, and the path was slippery with mud. Rocks shifted under their feet as they led families and elders along the safest routes. Ethan helped carry supplies and guided those who struggled, while Aeon's knowledge of hidden paths and natural shelters kept them ahead of danger. Their teamwork was seamless, a result of trust built over weeks of shared experience. As they moved, Ethan noticed the expressions on the faces of those around them. Fear was evident, but so was hope. Hope that these two people, who had proven their courage and wisdom, would guide them safely through the peril. Aeon's people followed her with confidence, trusting her instincts and the lessons she had learned. Settlers, initially skeptical of her heritage, began to recognize the practicality and courage she displayed. Ethan's calm presence reassured them, showing that strength and kindness could coexist. Hours passed and the storm grew stronger. Rain poured down, making the canyon a river of rushing water and mud. Trees bent under the wind and thunder echoed off the cliffs. Yet Ethan and Aeon pressed forward, unshaken, their determination unwavering. When a tree fell across the path, Ethan quickly assessed the situation, guiding the group around the obstacle while Aeon found an alternate route to avoid the most dangerous sections of the canyon. During a brief pause as they sheltered under a rocky overhang, Aeon turned to Ethan. "We've faced many dangers before," she said, her voice barely audible over the rain. "But this is different. The land itself is challenging us." Ethan looked at her, his expression steady. "We've learned from it, though. Every step, every choice has prepared us for moments like this. And we're not alone, we have each other." The storm raged on, but their combined skills and knowledge allowed them to guide the group safely. They moved methodically, never rushing recklessly, always observing the land and anticipating hazards. Ethan found himself relying on Aeon's insight, while she depended on his strength and calm judgment. They had become a single force, balancing each other perfectly in the face of adversity. As evening approached, the storm began to ease, revealing the damage left behind: trees uprooted, paths washed out, and small homes damaged by the river's surge. Yet remarkably, the people they guided had reached higher ground safely. Relief and gratitude were evident on every face, and Ethan felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Aeon stood beside him, her cloak wet but her posture proud. "We did it," she said softly. "Everyone is safe." Ethan smiled, though fatigue weighed on him. "We did, because we trusted each other and worked together. We didn't just survive the storm, we helped others survive it too." The days following the storm were filled with recovery and rebuilding. Ethan and Aeon worked tirelessly, helping repair homes, clear paths, and restore the land as best they could. Their partnership had proven invaluable, not only in guiding people through immediate danger, but also in fostering trust between the communities. Settlers began to see Aeon's people in a new light, appreciating their knowledge and resilience, while Aeon's community recognized Ethan's integrity and dedication. Amidst the work, Ethan and Aeon found moments for each other. They would sit quietly, sharing small meals or walking along the edge of the canyon, reflecting on the events that had unfolded. These moments were filled with a mix of relief, admiration, and the growing affection they could no longer ignore. One evening, As the sun set behind the cliffs, painting the sky with vibrant oranges and purples, Aeon turned to Ethan. "I never imagined that saving my life in the canyon would lead to this," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "We've faced storms, danger, and uncertainty, yet here we are." Ethan took her hand gently. "It was never just about saving you, Aeon. It was about finding courage, understanding, and respect. And in the process, I found someone I cannot imagine being without." Her eyes softened, reflecting the fading sunlight. "I feel the same. You've changed my life too, Ethan. Your strength, your kindness, it has given me hope, even when the world seemed uncertain." Their hands remained joined as they watched the canyon below, the river flowing steadily after the storm, a symbol of resilience and continuity. The land had tested them, shaped them, and brought them together. And now they realized that their connection was deeper than friendship. It was a bond forged through trust, shared trials, and mutual respect. The following weeks were spent rebuilding not only homes but relationships. The communities began working together more closely, guided by the example set by Ethan and Aeon. Mutual respect grew, misunderstandings were resolved, and a new sense of unity emerged. Ethan and Aeon's leadership and courage had shown everyone that cooperation, patience, and understanding were more powerful than fear or prejudice. During this time, Ethan and Aeon grew even closer. They shared laughter, quiet conversations, and moments of reflection under the stars. Their bond became stronger with each passing day, built on shared experiences, mutual admiration, and a growing love that neither could deny. One afternoon, as they walked along a quiet ridge, Aeon stopped and turned to Ethan. "Do you ever think about the canyon?" she asked. "About how it brought us together?" Ethan nodded. "Every day. It changed both of our lives. It tested us, taught us, and gave us each other. I wouldn't trade it for anything." Aeon smiled, her eyes shining. "Neither would I, and now I feel ready for whatever comes next, because I know we face it together." As the sun set that evening, casting long shadows across the canyon, Ethan and Aeon stood side by side, looking out at the vast landscape. The challenges they had faced had been great, but they had emerged stronger, wiser, and united. They had learned that courage was not just about surviving danger, but about understanding, trusting, and caring for others. The canyon, once a place of danger and uncertainty, had become a symbol of their journey, of resilience, growth, and the power of connection. It had tested them, shaped them, and ultimately brought them together in a bond that would endure. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. "We've come far," he said quietly, "and yet I feel like this is only the beginning." Aeon nodded, resting her head briefly on his shoulder. "It is, and I am ready as long as we face it together." Together, they turned to face the canyon, its endless cliffs and winding paths stretching into the distance. They knew that life would continue to bring challenges, but they also knew that their bond, their courage, and their shared respect for the land and each other would guide them through anything. As the first stars appeared in the night sky, shimmering like tiny sparks of hope, Ethan and Aeon walked back toward the cabin, hand in hand. The canyon had changed their lives forever, shaping them into stronger, wiser people and uniting them in a bond that transcended fear, danger, and difference. And as they disappeared into the warm glow of the cabin, the canyon remained behind them, a silent witness to their journey, their courage, and the love that had grown amidst its rugged beauty. The story of Ethan and Aeon had begun with a single act of bravery, but it had grown into something far greater, a tale of trust, understanding, resilience, and destiny. And while the canyon would continue to challenge those who entered its depths, it had also proven that courage, wisdom, and love could overcome any obstacle. Ethan and Aeon had faced the storm, guided their people, and discovered in each other a strength that neither had anticipated. Together, they had turned danger into opportunity, fear into hope, and a chance encounter into a lifelong connection. And as the night settled over the canyon, the stars shining above, they knew one truth that would guide them forever: that courage and kindness, when paired with trust and understanding, could change the world and change their destiny forever.